During the Italian Renaissance, the private study, or studiolo, often reflected their owners and were filled with a carefully curated collection of objects and paintings. Although not the only woman to have a study, the Marchesa of Mantua, Isabella d'Este, had a collection of mythological subjects that was unusual for her gender. What made her a particularly interesting artistic patron, however, was her inventiveness. Isabella d'Este had come from a highly esteemed family, and thus escaped most of the criticism that her fellow female humanists would have endured in their pursuit for learning. Women were expected to only collect works of religious subjects so as to not compromise their virtuous natures. After marrying Francesco Gonzaga II in 1490 and becoming the Marchioness of Mantua, Isabella found herself with a study that needed to be furnished and decorated. Between the years 1497 and 1506, Isabella d'Este sought out numerous painters to execute her plan for a series of mythological paintings. In 1497, Isabella first inquired about Pietro Perugino's availability and whether he would be willing to execute her commission. It was not until 1503 and many letters later did she manage to persuade the artist to sign a contract. The Battle Between Love and Chastity by Pietro Perugino is one of the 5 original mythological paintings that the Marchesa had commissioned for her study. This painting is centered around the theme of the moralistic struggle between vice and virtue. It was distinctive in comparison with his other works, which rarely portrayed violence. The composition features an intense struggle between mythological figures. Chastity is personified by the virgin goddesses Pallas and Diana, as well as the nymphs of Diana. Their opposition, love, is embodied by Venus and Cupid, satyrs, and a selection of male gods. Along with the background, these features correspond with the rest of Isabella's program of mythological commissions, with similar color palettes and depiction of nature. It is similar to the landscaping of Mantegna's Palace expelling the vices from the Garden of Virtue, which has similar sloping hills and features a river that extends into the distance. The sky, however, is more evocative of Mantegna's Parnassus, also in the studiolo of the Marchesa. After Perugino, Isabella d'Este commissioned Lorenzo Costa for 2 works. The first was the allegory of the court of Isabella, which was placed central in the sequence of paintings. Although the subject matter of the painting has never been clearly identified due to the lack of indication in the correspondence between the Marchesa and artist, the picture is generally seen as Isabella d'Este's coronation. In the center is a figure, who likely represents Isabella herself, being crowned for her virtues by Cupid, as in Taros, who was held by his mother Venus. Reign of Calmus, the second work of Costa's, is not very well understood, but the theme of the struggle of morals is apparent. 20 years after the commission of these original 5 works, Isabella d'Este had Correggio complete the allegories of virtue and vice. The program of the studiolo centered around the main theme of a struggle between virtue and vice. One side of the studiolo held the paintings of virtuous meaning, with Parnassus, Perugino's battle, the allegory of the court of Isabella, and Correggio's allegory of virtue. The other sinister side featured the rest of the works, including Correggio's allegory of vice. Much of the documentation of these works provide a wealth of information on both the subject matters of some of these paintings and on the communication between patron and artist. Notably, the conversations between Isabella and Perugino were drawn out and detailed, with dozens of letters sent between the time of the first correspondence to the completion of the work. The abundance of communication, though providing valuable information, also created a discussion that focused more on Isabella d'Este's personality rather than the works themselves. While the Marchesa was certainly a unique figure in the Italian Renaissance, her reputation as being an anomalous example of a courtly woman has marginalized her humanistic endeavors within a frame of female patronage. Still, Perugino's painting is a representation and reminder of Isabella's efforts to maintain her high status and visibility in courtly circles, through the challenging of patronage norms, as well as depicting the virtues that were thought to be compromised in learned women like herself.